Hello friends, and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to do my May wrap-up. I believe I have 13 books, 1 DNF, and this was a disappointing month. I feel like I read a few releases, like new releases, that I wasn't super excited about after reading them, and it was just kind of disappointing. Overall, this month was just kind of meh. Just very average, not a lot of high ratings, so it was an okay month. Unfortunately, I didn't find too many books that I was obsessed with and fell in love with, so that was a little bit disappointing. We're gonna go down my list. I'm gonna tell you my rating, my thoughts on it, a little overview, and we're going to start at the bottom with the DNF and work our way to the top so we end on a positive note, as always, because I like to end on a happy note with my 5-star ratings. So let's get into my wrap-up. The DNF of the month, if you saw my reading vlog, you know what it is, and it is The Girl Next Door by Jack Ketchum. I'm not going to go too in-depth in this book. I'm not going to really talk about it too much because I don't really want to linger on this book anymore. I did a whole reading vlog dedicated to it. You can see my thoughts and my experience reading it if you want to. It's kind of all over the place. It's kind of a hot mess. It's basically me on the verge of tears. It's kind of embarrassing. But yeah, I didn't like this book. I didn't get very far. I got like 100 pages in and I didn't feel comfortable continuing on with this book. I feel that it blurs a line that I personally am not comfortable crossing. I know a lot of people love this book. I know it's very loved and cherished in the extreme horror arena. Personally, this was just not for me. Yeah, it just blurs a line with reality and fiction, and since it's based on a true story, I just really don't feel comfortable crossing that line. So I DNF'd it for my own sanity, my own well-being, my mental state, yeah, whatever. I DNF'd it. I wasn't a fan. I do not recommend personally, but the next category is 2.5 stars. I have 1 book in this category, and unfortunately, it is one of my anticipated releases of this year. I'm very disappointed, but it is Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. I bought this because of the cover. I think the cover is absolutely stunning. This is the UK cover. This book is not available in the US yet, but I got this off of Book Depository because I wanted the UK cover so badly. So that's why I pretty much bought this book. But this story is about Miri, whose wife Leah comes back from this deep sea expedition that went horribly wrong, and Leah comes back changed and has some things going on that are kind of bizarre. I really wanted to love this book. I really wanted to love this book. But unfortunately, I just don't think it's for me. This is one of those books where nothing happens. This is primarily told from Miri's point of view, but you do get Leah's point of view when she's in the deep sea mission. But I'm gonna be honest, nothing happens. It's a lot of just talking about nothing, especially Miri's point of view. Oh my goodness, nothing happens. Miri tells like stories about her and Leah and their relationship, and I'm assuming that is to show that their relationship is different now, especially since Leah has just come back, changed, and you know, something's going on. And it's just a lot of like reminiscing about things that I didn't really care about. I don't know, I think it just kind of went over my head, if I'm gonna be honest. It seems like one of those books that if you like really pretty lyrical prose, but you don't really care about like something happening, like anything intense or crazy or anything like that, if you just care about like the writing and the way it's written, I think you'll like this. But it's just like a whole lot of nothing, and then at the end you get a whole lot of nothing. It doesn't really get explained. There are some descriptions that I really enjoyed, but nothing really explained expands from that. It doesn't really go to the place that I wanted it to go. Yeah, I think this is one of those books that I'm just not smart enough for. I think it was trying to say something, but I'm not really sure what it was trying to say. I think it's more about like their loss of relationship and like changing and that kind of thing, but like honestly it didn't really work for me. So yeah, I'm not a fan of this one, unfortunately. The cover is beautiful, but didn't quite work for me. Next up is the 3-star category, and first up is The Maidens by Alex Michelidis. This book, I didn't want to start it because I didn't think I was gonna like it, and honestly I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. I thought I was being pretty generous with 3 stars. I went back and forth if I should give it 2.5, but I decided to be a little bit more generous because I didn't absolutely like dislike it. There were some things I did enjoy about this book, so I just settled on a 3-star rating. This is about the main character, Mariana, who is a therapist, and her niece's friend gets murdered, and she's obsessed with the idea that it's this professor at the school who did it, and she just tries to prove it. She becomes obsessed with trying to prove it, and that's the whole story. I'm gonna be honest, the reason I don't like this book is because Mariana, the main character, is the most obnoxious main character ever. She has to be one of the worst therapists that I've read in a really long time. She was driving me insane, and I personally just hate when therapists are written so poorly, and to me she was written so poorly. I couldn't stand it. She made really bad decisions, and I wanted to shake her and yell at her and tell her to stop being an idiot. And it takes a lot for me to be that angry with a main character. I try to give them leniency because, you know, everyone deals with things differently, and sometimes I don't know how I would react in a character's situation, but this woman drove me up the wall, so I had to hate her more than usual. 2, I guessed the plot twist extremely early on. I thought it was super obvious. I thought it was super dumb. I did not like it. So that was really annoying for me that it was what I thought it was. I guessed about halfway through, I was like, this is where it's going, I know it, and I was right, and that kind of ruined a lot for me, unfortunately. There was like another plot twist that did surprise me. I didn't see that coming, so that was cool, I guess. Chapters are extremely short. I really liked that. Made the book go by super fast. It was a really quick read. I read it like in no time, and I did finish it, so you know I had to give it points for that. I liked the Greek mythology, that was cool, but overall it was okay. It was just okay. I didn't absolutely detest it, but I didn't like it, you know? I wasn't like, oh yeah, I'd recommend this. And this was actually a buddy read with my friend Megan. So thank you for reading this with me. I really appreciate it because I probably would have not got the guts to read it by myself. So very, very happy that I had someone else to read it with. So next up in the 3-star category is The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks. This was part of the vlog series that I'm doing where I read books recommended to me by booktuber friends, and this was Roya's pick. I'll link that video if you missed it. This is a very interesting story. I still don't quite know how I feel about it, which is why I settled on 3 stars. It's about the main character whose brother is away at a psychiatric ward, and the brother ends up breaking out and calls them up and saying like, hey, I'm gonna come home, you know? And it's basically the buildup of the brother coming home, but like other stuff is kind of happening but not really happening. There's a lot of animal cruelty in this, so if you do not like animal cruelty, you will not enjoy this in the slightest. It's a lot. The main character also likes to talk about, you know, the fact that they have killed people, which definitely, you know, animal cruelty, murder, you know, serial killer behavior. I love to see it. So it's very interesting. The plot twist, while I didn't see it coming, I'm really mad that I didn't see it coming. I think I was too focused on trying to figure out what the plot of the book was and what I was supposed to be like reading, that I didn't see the plot twist coming. And then when the plot twist happened, I was like, oh my god, I should have known. I should have known. It snuck up on me, and I'm mad that I didn't see it coming. So that was interesting. I don't really know what to make of this book. I'm gonna be honest. It is definitely like more of an extreme horror, more of like a disturbing horror book. Like I said, animal cruelty, so, you know, don't read that if that's one of your trigger warnings. But yeah, it was a very interesting, weird book. Again, not really sure how I feel about it, so that's why I placed it in this category. I'm still unsure. It's just, you know, I don't know. I don't know where it's at for me. Okay, next up and last in the 3-star category is another anticipated release that I am sad to say didn't work out for me. And it is The Hacienda by Isabel Kanyes. So I was very excited about this book because it is described to be similar to Mexican Gothic, which, if you don't know, I absolutely love Mexican Gothic. It's one of my favorite horror books. It's one of my favorite Gothic horror novels. It's pretty much the standard for Gothic horror, like for me. It's what I compare everything to. So I think that definitely hindered my love for this book, because I was comparing it to Mexican Gothic the entire time I was reading it. This was another buddy read with Gabby from Hola Books, so thank you, Gabby, for reading this with me. I feel like I was needing a buddy read for this one because I kind of wasn't feeling it too much, so that was very helpful. So this book, in a very simplistic plot, is about the main character who gets married, and when she arrives at her husband's home and he ends up leaving for work, she begins to hear voices and see things, you know, typical Gothic horror novel setup. I think where this book really lacked for me is the fact that nothing happens. Halfway through the book, I was really worried that I was not going to finish it. It was very boring. I was not really enjoying the characters too much. I didn't feel connected to the main character, which is the opposite of how I felt in Mexican Gothic. So I was very worried. The second half of the book does get better for me, in my opinion. I do like the second half a lot more. I'll be honest, the only reason I really kept going with this book was for Padre Andres. He was my favorite character. I really liked him. I thought he was very interesting. Yeah, he was pretty much the sole reason that I kept going with this book. And the second half does get more exciting, in my opinion, but the ending is just so predictable. Like, this book is very typical for what it is. I don't think it had anything super crazy or unique happen, where Mexican Gothic, I felt like, really did something different for me. So yeah, that's why I settled on 3 stars. I didn't hate it. I did like it. It just wasn't what I wanted it to be, and it wasn't as good as Mexican Gothic, which I do feel like me comparing it to Mexican Gothic really did hinder my enjoyment of this book, which is unfortunate, but you know, they compared it to Mexican Gothic, so I was waiting for it, and it didn't really happen. So it was just a very average read for me. Next, we are moving into the 3.5 star category, and yeah, these were a little bit better than the books that I just talked about. So, first up in the 3.5 star category is Below by Laurel Hightower. This was sent to me by Ghoulish Books in exchange for an honest review. just want to let you know that this was sent to me, but you know how I am. I'm going to tell you whether I like a book or not, whether it was sent to me or not. So, this is about a woman who is driving through the West Virginian mountains at night during a snowstorm, and she begins experiencing electrical problems, and things kind of go really bad after that. And this is a Mothman creature feature story, which I was extremely excited about because I've never seen a Mothman story, I don't think. I mean, granted, I don't read a lot of creature features, which I'm trying to experiment a little bit and read more, you know, different kinds of horror than I usually do. So I was very excited for this novella, and I have very mixed feelings about it. The first half of this book plays with some of my fears, my real dark fears. I have very bad driving and car anxiety, and so this was actually terrifying for me to read in the first half. The woman driving in the dark with bad road conditions, it was just terrifying. It was really playing with my driving fears. So that's why I wanted to rate this so much higher, because the first half was actually terrifying to me. I was really, really nervous. The second half is where it lost me. The writing got a little bit disorienting and kind of like fever dream-esque, which I wasn't the biggest fan of. I don't know, it just went in a weird direction that I wasn't super into. Luckily, this is a very, very short read. I mean, very quick. I read it in like one night. I did read this at night, by the way. I was literally in bed reading it. So I do think that helped with like my driving fears. It did amplify the experience, so it did make the reading experience more creepy and, you know, more frightening. But the second half lost me, which was unfortunate. I really wanted to love this more because it is a Mothman story, but I do think people who love creature features, especially Mothman, will probably eat this up. I think you will love this story. So I highly recommend to people who actively love creature features. If you love them more than like anything else, I really think you should pick this up. This was fun and I did enjoy it. I just don't like it as much as some other books, but I still do recommend it, and I think a lot of people will enjoy it. So next up is a book that I was also sent by the author in exchange for an honest review. I don't have a physical copy. I read it on my Kindle, so I will insert a picture here. And that is The Wolf Society by Michael Penning. So this is the third installment in the Book of Shadows series, but it can be read as a standalone. I did read it as a standalone. I haven't read any of the other previous books. But in this story, we follow Anna Jacobs and her mother, Abigail, and both women are badass, and they fight these supernatural evil entities that they come across. And these two start investigating this Vermont village where women are mysteriously disappearing. What they actually end up encountering is this secret society that is brewing this plot that includes the children of the village. So this is a very action-packed story. I think it is a very heavily action horror. So if you tend to like really like high action horror stories, I think this will be definitely up your alley. Like I said, the characters are both like really strong, independent, badass women, which I love having in my stories. I personally would suggest starting at the beginning of this series. Like I said, this can be read as a standalone, but personally from me reading it, I did feel like I was missing some kind of information in the story. I felt like I didn't really grasp Anna and Abigail's relationship. I knew that they were mother and daughter, but there was like tension between them that I wasn't really familiar with. Sometimes their actions towards each other didn't fully make sense to me. I could tell that there was like something between them, but I wasn't really sure what had gone down previously. So personally, just to get a better idea of the characters and just be able to like fully immerse yourself in the story, I would suggest starting at the beginning of the series. I feel like I probably would have had a different reading experience if I had started at the beginning, just because I wasn't fully able to connect with the characters since I had come in kind of in the middle. There's also a historical aspect to the story, which I think a lot of people will enjoy, because it does add to the reading experience and to like the enjoyment of the experience. So I know a lot of people probably would enjoy that as well. I think people who love strong women leads in their books, action-packed stories, cults, supernatural horror, and like really brutal like kill scenes would really enjoy this story. While this isn't my usual type of horror book, it was fun and it did keep me entertained, and it was a quick, easy read. So I did have fun with it and I did enjoy my experience while reading it. Next up and last in the 3.5 star category is another new release that I was pretty disappointed by. I still liked it, but I didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to, and that is The Children on the Hill by Jennifer Mcmahon. I was extremely excited for this book. I really thought I was going to love it, especially since I loved The Winter People so much. Unfortunately, this did fall short for me. Compared to The Winter People, I really didn't love it as much. I gave The Winter People 4.5 stars, and this is a 3.5 star. So yeah, it's not as high of a rating. This is a dual timeline story. The first timeline is 1978, the second is 2019. And in 1978, you follow Violet and Eric, whose grandmother is a psychiatrist. And one day, their grandmother brings home this girl who doesn't talk, but she tells Violet and Eric to treat her like their sister and try to, you know, just make her a part of the family. In 2019, you follow this woman named Lizzie Shelley, whose job is to follow monsters. She goes around looking for cryptids, and she has a podcast, and she's been on a TV show, and her job is to hunt monsters. She ends up going to Vermont, where a girl has gone missing, and a mysterious monster sighting has been mentioned along with the disappearance. So of course the two timelines do have stuff in common, and they do connect. This has a lot of references to Frankenstein, which I absolutely love. Frankenstein is one of my favorite horror novels of all time. I love Frankenstein, so I did really enjoy that aspect. I really liked Lizzie Shelley as a character. I really loved her job of hunting cryptids. I thought that was really cool. I was really enjoying that part. I really did enjoy both timelines. I personally preferred the 2019 one, and you know, hearing from Lizzie's point of view and hearing her talk about cryptids and stuff like that, I liked that. I found that more interesting than the 1978 timeline. My biggest issue with this is I figured out the plot twist halfway through the book. It wasn't shocking to me. It wasn't surprising. I literally was reading, looked at my partner and said, I just figured it out what the plot twist is. I know that's what they're doing, and I am annoyed by it. I was not happy with the plot twist. I did not like it. I was not a fan. I didn't think it was that good in my opinion, and I was mad that I had figured it out. I didn't want to figure it out. I don't like figuring out plot twists. So I was pretty disappointed. I did like the ending to an extent. I wanted a little bit more from the ending though. I feel like it kind of felt rushed and a little bit abrupt, which was annoying. I wanted a little bit more to it. So unfortunately this was just not my favorite. I much prefer The Winter People by Jennifer Mcmahon. But yeah, I mean, it was fine. I liked it. I thought it was okay. I had some, you know, issues with it, but overall I still enjoyed my experience with it. I just wanted to like it more than I actually did. Next up is the 4-star category, and the first book in the 4-star category was sent to me in exchange for a review by the author, but you know how I am. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna tell you how I feel, and that book is Fall of the House of Crane by Cindy Wingett. So this is actually a retelling of The Haunting of Hill House, but mashed up with some Edgar Allan Poe stories. I am not super familiar with a lot of Edgar Allan Poe's work. I know some, but not all of them. But I have to say that I really enjoyed the mashup of the two. They worked really well together. It makes sense because they feel very similar in my opinion. So I did like that it was a mashup. So we all know that I am not the biggest The Haunting of Hill House fan. I found the book to be extremely boring, very slow, nothing happens. It's not my type of story. I have a lot of issues with gothic horror sometimes, in the realms of being slow and boring. But I will say that if you also feel that way, or you're new to gothic horror and you don't really know what to expect or if you're gonna like it, I think this would be a really good starting point, because in this book, it's the same familiar stories, but mashed up, it does add spice. It does add a little bit more flavor to the mix, but also this is almost like a sped up version. This is almost like when people talk about reading audiobooks, and instead of reading at the normal speed, they like amp it up just like a little bit, you know, the reading speed, so it's like almost quicker. That's how I felt about this. It was like an amped up, speeded up version, I guess, if that makes sense. So you're not kind of like just waiting for something to happen. Things are moving quicker. It's not drawn out, which I do know is what a lot of people love about gothic horror, but personally it's not something I tend to enjoy. It's not nothing and nothing for pages and pages. It's more sped up. It's the same kind of stories. It's very familiar. If you've read The Haunting of Hill House or Edgar Allan Poe, I'm sure you'll catch little like Easter eggs and you'll know exactly what's going on. But it's just a little bit quicker. It's just a little bit quicker. It's a little bit more. It's just a little bit more. I don't know how to explain it without, you know, it's just saying that. It's just a little bit more sped up, which is something I enjoyed. It has all the elements of gothic horror that you typically see. It's just a little bit faster and a little bit more amped up. Just has a little bit more oomph to it, which is something that I really enjoyed. It's very easy to read, and that's something that I also think is lacking in gothic horror sometimes. So overall, I think this is just like a very easy, like simple gothic horror kind of novel. I love that it's a mashup. I think people just getting into gothic horror, or people who don't really typically like gothic horror, will end up liking something more on this side. Next up in the 4-star category is my only romance for the month, and it is Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. So this is the second book in the Bellinger sisters series. The first one is It Happened One Summer, which I absolutely loved, so I knew that I was going to end up picking this one. And this is about Piper's sister Hannah, and her love interest is Fox, who is Brendan's best friend from It Happened One Summer. If you've read It Happened One Summer, you know the characters already because they are in that book as well. So this book is about Hannah ending up crashing with Fox. She ends up staying with him for a little bit, and he ends up trying to help her with her crush on her colleague. And I really enjoyed this one. I did. I just didn't love this one as much as It Happened One Summer. I really like Hannah, but I don't love her as much as I love her sister, Piper. I love Piper so much more. I just connected with her more, and I just enjoyed her more as a character. However, where this book shines is Fox. I absolutely love him. I think he is the shining star of this story. He is such a cute love interest. I love him so much. I loved him. My heart just like squeezed when he was like being cute. I just loved him. He was just great. This one definitely isn't as smutty or steamy as It Happened One Summer. I felt like I was waiting a lot for that, and it didn't really happen until like the end, and I was kind of like, okay, yeah, I mean, that's fine. Maybe I just needed more smut. I don't know. maybe that's saying a lot about me. I don't know. But yeah, this just wasn't as good as It Happened One Summer, but I still loved it. I love the characters. I love the Bellinger sisters. I just like Paper a little bit more, and I like It Happened One Summer just overall as a story more, but I do enjoy this, and I thought it was a lot of fun, and yeah, I liked it. I had fun reading it. I just couldn't love it as much as It Happened One Summer, unfortunately. Next up, and last in the 4-star category, is a book that I had been putting off for a really long time, and it's because the book I read previously by this author had such a huge impact on me, and I loved it so much that I was nervous to read this one. But this book is in my 22 books I want to read in 2022, so I am glad that I finally gave it a read. I'll tell you my thoughts in a minute, but that is Penance by Kanyes Minato. I love Confessions. It is one of my all-time favorite books of all time. How many times can I say of all time? It is my all-time favorite book. I just love Confessions so much. I think about it all the time. I have a love so deep for Confessions, okay? So I did put off Penance for a while because I was nervous that it wasn't going to hit me as hard as Confessions, and I was just nervous. I was worried. I was like, how is it gonna live up to Confessions? Like, Kanye, I don't know, can you do it? I was worried, you know? While it's not Confessions, I did really love this book. Not as much as Confessions. I didn't give it 5 stars, but it's very, very good, and I still recommend reading this one. This is about a group of 5 girls, and they're playing one day, and this stranger walks up to them and convinces them to let one of the friends go with him by herself, and they do, and unfortunately that girl is found murdered, and the girls have to live with that and the repercussions of that event and that trauma. However, the mother of the girl that ended up dying blames the girls for lots of things that I don't want to get into too much, but she ends up blaming the girls, and this book follows how that blame from the mother and all that trauma and that event affects their lives. It's very interesting. I will say this is very similar in the sense of writing to Confessions, so if you didn't like the writing in Confessions, I don't think you'll like this, but this is set up very similar to Confessions. You get the point of view from each girl, and you get to see how their life has played out since the event, and just their thoughts and their feelings and their perspective on everything. This is a revenge story, so again, very similar to Confessions. Where this lacked for me, unfortunately, is the ending. It's not as punchy as Confessions. If you've read Confessions, you know what I'm saying. That ending, it just kind of hits ya. It's very punchy. It just punches you in the face, which is something I absolutely love about it. It's one of my favorite endings. I think it's incredibly amazing. I just love it. This is a little bit more predictable. It didn't shock me. It's still disturbing. This book is still disturbing. I'm gonna leave it at that, obviously. You can tell by the content that this is a disturbing book. So it's not necessarily the level of disturbing isn't the same, it's just the level of punch, and this is predictable. I did see where it was going pretty early on, so when the ending is kind of revealed and everything's like, aha, it wasn't as aha for me. It was more like, aha, you know? Again, I love Kanyes Minato's writing. I'm just in love with it. I think it's very easy and engaging and captivating, and I'm obsessed, okay? But this just didn't hit me like Confessions hit me, okay? Confessions just like walloped me in the face. This one was more like a tap, you know, it was just like a oh, boom, you know? Do I recommend reading Penance if you liked Confessions? Absolutely. I do think it's not as good though. That's just me personally, you know? You can make that decision for yourself. If you choose to read it, you can decide differently. I don't know. But for me personally, Penance was good. It was very good. I loved it. But I didn't love of it like I did Confessions, you know? Next up is the 4.5 star category. I only have one book, and this book is actually a very surprising book. I did not think I was going to like this book as much as I did, and that is The Woods Are Always Watching by Stephanie Perkins. I did not think I was gonna like this book. I really didn't. I mean, I thought I might before I started it, but then when I started it, I was like, oh no, I don't think I'm gonna like it. This is about two friends who are just recently graduated from high school, and they're kind of going separate ways now because of graduation, and they decide to kind of have one last like friendship hurrah, you know, and they decide to go camping. Of course, you know, it doesn't just become a nice little camping trip, right? No, of course not. There is trouble there that they encounter. I'm not going to tell you what kind because I don't want to get into it because it'll spoil. First off, when I first started the book, I was immediately like frustrated because the main characters don't like camping. Like they don't know how to camp. They've never done it. They're not really outdoorsy people, and they're like, let's go camping. And I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? That is the worst idea. And they go by themselves. But one of their brothers is good at camping, and I'm like, you should have taken him with you. Like, why didn't you... Like, I mean, I get that you wanted to do it by yourself, but like, this is a bad idea. And you know, when you're watching a horror movie and you're watching someone do something dumb and you're like, no, why? Don't stop. Don't do that. Don't go looking for the... You're going to find the killer. You're going looking. Don't do that. What are you doing? You know? That was like me reading the first half of this book. I was like, why are you doing this to yourselves? I mean, personally, I absolutely hate camping, so I would never do this to myself. I've been camping once. It was a horrible experience. I will never go again. I absolutely hated it. And I was with, not just by myself, I was with other people, and I hated it. So I would never do this again. Never. Immediately, I knew this was trouble. I was like, oh, you guys are gonna get into a lot of serious trouble. When things started happening, I was worried this was going down a path that I was a little disappointed. I was like, oh no, this isn't gonna be what I want it to be. But then things take a turn, and they took a dark and kind of twisted and actually like disturbing turn, and I was very shocked. I did not expect it because this is a YA. So I was like, oh, whoa, what's happening? But I can tell you by the end of the book, I was like, yep, I like this. I like this a lot. It did get me to tear up a little bit, which you know isn't very hard to do because I'm a baby. But it did make me tear up a little bit, you know. It got my little eyes watering. I was like, oh. But yeah, really enjoyed this. Really enjoyed it. Surprised the absolute crap out of me. I did not think I was gonna like this as much. And especially by the first half, I was like, oh, I don't think I'm liking this. Which is why it's not a perfect 5. I gave it a 4.5 because it did have me worried in the first half. But it pulled it out. And you know what? I'm happy I read it. I really liked this one. It was really good. I'm pretty pleased. Next up is the 5-star category. We made it. We are finally at the books that I loved. There are only 2 of them. So a little bit disappointing, since we do know that I love to give 5 stars out. But unfortunately, there was only 2 books that deserved 5 stars in my opinion for this month. The first one is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, which is actually Taya's pick for the series that I did, asking booktuber friends to recommend me books. This was Taya's pick, and I absolutely loved it. Again, you can see my thoughts reading it, and like my experience reading it in that vlog. This book is a contemporary YA, and this is about Star, who is balancing 2 kind of separate lives. One, she lives in a poor Black community, and then she goes to this private, more wealthy school where it is primarily white students attending. And then tragically, Star is with one of her childhood friends and witnesses him get shot and murdered by a police officer. After that, because Star is the only one that was there that night, she has to decide what she wants to do. If she wants to go up against the police officer and tell what really happened, because she is the only one other than that police officer who knows what happened, or decide if she wants to lay low and keep the truth to herself. This is a very emotional read. This is a very heartbreaking, sad. I mean, there are so many words that I don't even know how to explain this book. I think it is very relevant to what is going on in the world. I do think this is a book that everyone could benefit from reading. I think everyone should pick this book up. I think it is very well written. It just gives you perspective. And I really enjoyed the story. I love the characters. I love Star. I love her family. I loved everything about it. It was very, very hard to read, but very necessary to read at the same time. And I really enjoyed this book. I loved everything about it. It was just a really good, beautiful, and even hopeful book. The ending is very hopeful, which I really liked, because I was pretty much crying at the point when the ending came, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna be a sad mess for the rest of the day. But the ending does leave you on a hopeful note for the future, and I really liked that as well. So definitely give this one a read if you haven't already. I really enjoyed it, and I think it's incredible. Next up and last in the 5-star category is My Dearest, Darkest by Kayla Cottingham. So this was also one of the books that was recommended to me by my booktube friends for the series that I did. This was Sav's pick. This, incredible. Oh my god, I loved it. I should have known Sav was gonna know what book to give me. But this is a sapphic YA horror dark academia book. My goodness, I loved this. Everything about this book. I loved everything about this book, which is why I gave it 5 stars. This book is about Finch, who was in a car accident with her parents, and her parents ended up dying, and she was the only survivor of that accident. But the accident kind of left her a little bit different. She ends up going to this academy, and she ends up making friends with this other girl who, you know, they have a little rocky beginning, but they're drawn to each other, you know? And one day at this academy, Finch, Selena, the girl that, you know, they have a little thing for each other, and some other girls end up summoning this creature that lives underneath the school, and this creature is like, I'll give you whatever wish you want. But of course, you know, there's a price. There's a price, and it's not a good price. It's not a good price. You know, you never make deals with creatures like that. It never ends well in books. So just, you know, food for thought in case you ever find a creature saying they're going to grant you your wishes for, you know, a little price, you know, probably say no. Especially if you read this, you're going to know. It's not a good price. But I absolutely love the writing of this book. I think this would be a really good book to read during the fall. It has those very fall-y vibes. It just felt like, you know, I could feel the crisp, cool air coming from this book. You know what I'm saying? I really enjoyed the dark academia vibes, which we all know I have a hit or miss relationship with dark academia. If all dark academia was like this, I'd be into it forever and ever. Like, sign me up, let's go. I love the description of the school, like the Gothic architecture. Again, just feels very fall to me. I don't know. I just kept thinking of fall while reading this book. This book was actually pretty creepy and spooky. There were some scenes where I was like, oh, did not expect. Because again, YA. I wasn't expecting it to be super creepy and spooky. But yeah, there were some scenes where I was pretty like, whoa. Okay. Love the characters, love the romance. We know I'm a sucker for a romance. I love romance. But also, this book, this is a minor detail, but I have to include it. It references one of my favorite movies of all time, Spirited Away. And for that, it had to get 5 stars. Like, honestly, if it was a 4.5, I would have rounded it up to a 5 just because there was a mention of Spirited Away in this book. That's how much I love that movie, okay? That movie is probably my favorite movie of all time, and so when I saw that reference, my heart dropped. I was like, oh, this book is made for me. This book was made for me. I think this book was made especially for me. I mean, I'm being dramatic, but also, am I? I don't know, because I think it was made for me. So, I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Highly recommend, especially if you like dark academia, horror, YA, like sapphic books. Yes, perfect. 10 out of 10. Love everything about it. I'm like beating it up because I love it. Anyways, yeah, love this book. Amazing. Mwah! Love it. And there you have it, my friends. That was my May wrap up. I have been talking for 10,000 years. My wrap ups are always 80 billion years long. Can I ever shut up? No. No, I cannot. So if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. It lets me know that you enjoy these long, rambling videos of me talking about the books that I read in the month that I'm making it for. So, you know, just let me know. Leave a comment down below if you've read any of these, what you thought about them. If we agree, if we disagree, if you want to read any of these, let me know. What was your favorite book of the month of May? What was your least favorite book of the month of May? And yeah, I hope you are having a good day, night, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. I will see you in my next video. Bye!